Solutions Architect from Iron Bow Technologies, Tom Wootton. I'm joined today by Corey Wright, Susie Wallingford, and Chris Radford. Let's dive right in. This is going to be a casual, informative conversation. We're aiming to show you how Cisco Meraki meets FedRAMP requirements and supports secure cloud networking for government use. Chris, can you kick us off with a quick intro?
Absolutely. So I'm Chris Radford, Senior Network Solutions Architect here at Iron Bow. I support all things enterprise networking, including Meraki for Government.
Thanks, Chris. Susie?
Hi, everyone. Similar to Chris, I support all things enterprise networking, but on the Cisco side, they've changed our titles to account executives for networking. So that's what we're referred to now. You may have previously known me as a PSS. I cover about half of the federal civilian space.
Welcome, Susie. And last but not least, Corey?
Hey everybody, my name is Corey Wright. Like Susie, I used to be a PSS, and who knows why we're called account executives now, but we are. Again, focus on networking, and I look after and work with the other half of the civilian market.
Nice. Well, let's talk about what Meraki is for government. Susie?
Yes. Hi. So Meraki for Government is Cisco's cloud-based networking solution for our federal customers. Since it's cloud-based, Cisco invested in going through the FedRAMP process so that our customers can be confident that they're investing in a secure and compliant networking solution.
So, real quick, let's define FedRAMP for those that are unfamiliar.
So, great question. And to be fair, I did have to Google it myself to see what the acronym actually stands for. But FedRAMP stands for the Federal Risk and Authorization Management Program. It was created by GSA back in 2011 and has since evolved. Now we're going through their new FedEx 20X initiative. But brass tacks, it's basically a standardized approach of evaluating the security of any cloud-based technology that then leads to a seal of approval, which in this case is FedRAMP Moderate authorized. By having that authorization or validation, you as our customers benefit. You're able to find better solutions that both fit your strategic technology roadmap priorities, whether that be cloud first, cloud maybe, or what's the cloud? And it also allows you to be confident that your technical data, everything is secure and that you can deliver the best experience to your users.
So, great. Why is this important?
So obviously I have a Cisco perspective, but I think Iron Bow is great to talk more to this. So I would love to ask Chris what he thinks.
Yeah, so in our opinion, it's all about giving agencies options, right? So agencies are looking for unified, secure, and scalable cloud networking options. And with the Meraki and Catalyst product lines converging, customers have a flexible deployment, whether that's on-prem or in the cloud, with the cloud now meeting all of the FedRAMP requirements that were discussed previously.
So, it's about giving agencies options. What do you think, Corey?
Yeah.
On mute. Yes. So point being, here, what Cisco's been doing for the last couple years is providing those options to customers, right? Having the ability to do or use one piece of hardware on premise, manage it on premise, or manage it in the cloud, and the flexibility of migrating that piece of hardware as you see fit or when you see fit, right? We started that with our Catalyst 9300 switches and our Wi-Fi 6E access points, and we've continued that with our new Wi-Fi 7 access points, as well as the new, as well as the Catalyst 9200s. But really giving the giving customers the ability to buy that one piece of hardware, protect their investment, and again, migrate as they see fit. The other thing is, and I was talking to a customer yesterday, where really they're going to end up in a hybrid environment, right? So that ability to have one set stock of gear and manage some of it in the cloud and some of it on-prem, right? But it's the same stock of gear was important to them. So the hybrid approach is definitely something we'll see for a while too.
Okay, well, tell us a little bit more about Meraki itself.
Sure. So let's talk about the platform itself, and then we'll highlight the items here that are available in the Meraki for Government Cloud. So Cisco Meraki has been a cloud dashboard since going back to 2006, and has grown over time to not just be a wireless thing or a switching thing, but be a platform for multiple products, right? So we've got our wireless products, as I mentioned, switching, as I mentioned, both Catalyst and traditional or legacy Meraki switching. We've got firewalls and SD-WAN. So that's our MX platform, and that will actually evolve as well to be common hardware over time. And we have our cellular gateways. Those are what we call MGs, and those are similar to, if you're used to Cradlepoint, similar to a Cradlepoint where you bring your SIM card, add it in, and you get internet off the back. We also have, and those 4 are available today in the Meraki for Government Cloud. We'll get into models later, but those are the top 4 that are available. We also have our mobile device management product, which manages iOS, Android, Mac, and Windows devices, just from an MDM perspective. And we've got a couple other product lines that are not in the Government Cloud. So our MV cameras, which are really fun. I was actually talking to a customer about that yesterday for monitoring IT closets, and our IoT sensors. Those are things, little sensors that can do water leak, temperature, humidity, CO2, is the door open or closed. Those aren't in the Meraki for Government Cloud yet, but are on the roadmap to be brought in. Lastly, the only thing else I want to hit on here is APIs. So our customers utilize APIs very frequently. I think the latest number is over 18 billion monthly Meraki API calls to and from the cloud. And that's being utilized for really two categories, if you will. One is for configuration, right? So being able to push configuration to the Meraki dashboard. And then 2 is pulling data out of the cloud, right? Or integrating with something else. So whether that's Splunk or whether that's ServiceNow, most of our government customers are utilizing ServiceNow, and that easy, quick integration via API is really important. So
Chris, walk us through Meraki for Government.
Sure. So Meraki for Government is the same Meraki platform that customers may be familiar with, but it's in US-based Equinix data centers. So all of the data is in the United States and remains on US soil, and 24/7 support from US persons. And it includes all the security standards that are required through the FedRAMP program, including FIPS 140-2, which is now evolving into FIPS 140-3, supported within the product portfolio for encryption at rest and in transit, additionally with continuous monitoring.
Corey, any inputs on Meraki for Government?
Yeah, the only thing else I would mention is for federal customers, right? You have the ability to go to the FedRAMP marketplace and grab all the documentation that's on the left-hand side of the slide. So the System Security Plan, or SSP, our CONMON, or Continuous Monitoring Documentation, POAMs, which is the Plan of Action, milestones, etc. So hundreds and hundreds of pages that you can read at your leisure if you would like. But really, the point being, all that documentation is there for you to review. All of our customers, even though we have our FedRAMP ATO, typically do review the documentation and see what's in there. Lastly, yes, this is a separate cloud, new cloud, right? Supported by US person on US soil, but the dashboard itself is the same. So if you're used to the Meraki dashboard, then it is not anything different. And when we get into the demo, I'll show you what I mean.
So what does this mean for organizational data?
So great question. One of the key things is that the user and management data all stays on US soil. But a key thing that we want to highlight here is that user traffic is never tunneled to the Meraki cloud. All of that data always remains local. And this ensures both performance of the network, but also maintains data security in accordance with the FedRAMP requirements.
So how does that apply to endpoint detection and response, or EDR solutions?
Yeah, so as Chris said, the managed data is definitely still going to and from the cloud, right? So if it's a laptop and it's connected to an access point, that's then connected to a switch, then connected to a Meraki MX, right? All that data is the management side is sent up to the cloud, and we know what it's connected to, how it's connected, et cetera. We know where it's going on the internet, because we look at application traffic information, but we're not sending the full packet to and from the cloud. It's not being stored by it. But for example, if we had anti-malware turned on the MX, and all of a sudden that laptop starts trying to download a piece of malware and is blocked, the information around what the piece of malware is, did the MX block it? That's all stored, and obviously in the management side of things. But still, the packets aren't going to and from the dashboard, or to and from the cloud, excuse me.
Nice. So Chris, walk us through some of the portfolio here.
Yeah, so most of the entire networking portfolio is FedRAMP authorized, including wireless with the latest Wi-Fi 7, Cisco Wireless 9170 series access points, switching that includes Catalyst 9300 series platforms, the SD-WAN or the MX appliances for SD-WAN and security firewall capabilities, and the Meraki gateways or the MGs, the cellular gateways for the internet backup connectivity.
Now, I'm looking at a lot of cool products here, but leadership within organizations has the concern with cost. There's a lot of focus right now, very tight budgets. So how does that translate?
So Cisco offers solutions at a variety of different price points, and agencies can use existing infrastructure and migrate gradually. And this will help them fit within obviously tight budget constraints that all agencies are facing these days.
Now, Corey, I know we talked about the new cloud and dashboard, and Chris, you can answer this as well. But are older Meraki devices supported in the new government cloud?
Sure. Yeah, I'll take this one. So yes, many legacy devices are supported with the Meraki for Government Cloud. We do, of course, recommend checking the current compatibility list and matrix, the documents online on Meraki's website. But most customers can migrate existing hardware that they have.
Okay. Let's talk use cases. Corey, you mentioned customer migrations. Can you share a success story?
Yeah. So one of our customers had been using the Meraki Commercial Cloud for the last couple of years for wireless specifically. They had their own authorization to use the commercial cloud, knowing we were building the Meraki for Government Cloud. They were going to eventually migrate, and that's what we did. So they deployed all their devices, deployed in their networks. They were up and running, in production, right? And when the Meraki for Government Cloud became available, they felt comfortable migrating. They actually asked us to come help them. So we utilized APIs to actually copy and paste. That's my dumb sales guy term. Copy and paste their configuration from the Meraki Commercial Cloud to the Meraki for Government Cloud. They reviewed the config, made sure it was what they wanted to migrate their devices to. And then we migrated, roughly 400-ish networks over a couple weeks. We migrated in an automated fashion. So the API went out, unclaimed the devices from the commercial cloud, brought them back up in the Meraki for Government Cloud with minimal downtime.
Ooh, see, you just said a word that sparked some thought. Downtime, minimal downtime. How much is minimal?
Zero. No. The downtime was roughly 3 to 5 minutes per device. So in this case, we did it at night, and that automated script ran. Would actually talk to the Meraki Commercial Cloud, have them unclaim those devices, and once they are reclaimed, the devices essentially have to ET phone home, is my technical term. They find what cloud they're destined to be part of, get to that cloud, download their config, and again back up within 3 to 5 minutes. So in terms of business downtime, there was none, but technically they did migrate them.
Nice. All right, well, let's shift our focus to operational efficiency and benefits of cloud networking. Chris, can you walk us through what makes Meraki's cloud platform compelling for customers?
Sure. So cloud networking with Meraki is designed to be simple, yet very scalable and secure, now with FedRAMP authorization. So everything from configuration of network devices and security policies to monitoring of the infrastructure and software updates is all done with just a few clicks within dashboard. There's no need for complex CLI commands or multiple network management tools to be deployed in order to get the network up and running and manage the network. And so all of this is eliminating on-prem infrastructure needed to deploy and maintain the network, and infrastructure that needs to be taken care of over time and updated and patched. All of that can be moved to the cloud to reduce the infrastructure costs on-prem. All of the administration is handled within the cloud with very high reliability, 4 nines of uptime for the cloud. And there's also zero-touch provisioning capabilities that are inherent with the solution. So as you onboard new network devices, after they've been claimed, they get an IP address and they connect to dashboard automatically, and they'll be put within the network and download their configuration very seamlessly.
Nice. Corey, your thoughts?
Yeah, so
on mute.
Yeah,
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, Chris mentioned zero touch provisioning, the marketing buzzword that I love. Just by the nature of cloud managed, we've had zero touch provisioning as part of the architecture since day one, right? Because you can configure your devices within the cloud managed dashboard or within the dashboard, and those things could be sitting in boxes, on a shipping truck, headed to your office. You plug it in and you give it, internet and power, and the first thing that device is gonna do is go find that cloud, download its configuration, and be off and running. So yeah, zero touch provisioning definitely provides some ease of use and kind of how quickly you can get things done.
Okay, Susie, your thoughts?
And Corey, I've heard of you calling that your ET phone home kind of thing for the zero touch or near zero touch provisioning. But on the software side, so obviously we've talked a lot about, okay, how do we transition from commercial cloud to government cloud? Corey and Chris talked about, the availability and the zero touch provisioning. But what about one of the other things that you have to do all the time on your network? Software updates. So we really try to simplify that process as well, instead of you having to download your firmware manually, USB device it, all that good stuff. You can select your upgrade window that works for you within, say, a pre-existing maintenance window that's not touching another part of the network. And then you can let the platform handle the rest and be confident that all that intelligence built into the back end is going to make those software updates really simple and a lot less stressful.
So all that sounds great, but as a business leader, I'd ask, how reliable is this cloud platform? How often are business continuity plans tested?
Yeah, good question, because in the many years I've been talking about Meraki with customers, the number one hesitation is, do I want to put my management in the cloud, right? And so first and foremost, we do publish a 4 nines uptime for the dashboard itself, which is a bit of a differentiator in the market. So, we're standing behind that, right? And in terms of how do we make sure the cloud's going to stay up, a couple things, right? One, the management itself for your Meraki dashboard is always run in 2 places and has a tertiary backup. So in the case of the Meraki for Government Cloud, we were talking about Equinix and 2 data centers there dispersed through the country. And then for FedRAMP, actually, we had to do a lot in terms of kind of retooling how we do both our security monitoring as well as business continuity plans, like you mentioned. So for ConMon, or continuous monitoring, we actually report on all that security vulnerability testing we're doing every month and review that with our sponsor. And in terms of the actual uptime and making sure things will keep running, we absolutely have, let's call it, refined and improved upon that plan and that testing as a result of going through the FedRAMP process. And we've doubled down and kind of gone back to the Meraki commercial cloud and actually put a lot of things that we had to do for FedRAMP back into the Meraki commercial cloud. So we were mentioning FIPS 140-2 and now 140-3. If you had a Meraki, or Catalyst Wi-Fi 7 access point and you connect it to the commercial cloud, that's actually going to tunnel via FIPS cryptography in the commercial cloud and in the government cloud. So there's definitely a lot that we've done as a result of FedRAMP on both let's call them offerings, both clouds.
So if there's a dashboard outage, do devices still function normally?
Yes. Good question. So when your internet's down and you're going crazy, your folks within the office can at least still locally print, file share, right? The devices still function as is with their configuration. So they will allow or they'll keep their config running, within their own CPU and memory. Obviously, you can't see them from the dashboard, but you'll know when that outage occurs or when that connection from device to cloud is disturbed or cut off.
Chris, what about the firmware side?
And with firmware, everything's tested in the labs, rigorously, and they put it into beta before releasing it to the general availability. So there's transparency control with software updates, and admins get notified of upcoming software updates, and they can choose to opt in to either have automatic updates performed or opt out of that and do scheduled software upgrades to their network devices from the cloud.
Okay, that kind of resilience is critical. How does cloud networking compare in terms of security and efficiency to traditional on-prem solutions?
Sure. So that's a great question. And I think Corey and Chris have done an excellent job of talking to a lot of the security standpoint of things, right? We meet the FedRAMP standard. That's your seal of approval. That means our data is encrypted. You've got the detailed audit logs. You've got the US only support. In addition to that, Cisco obviously, like Corey said, invests in FIPS 140-2 and now 3. And Meraki integrates really well, obviously with Cisco security solutions, that's a given. But also a lot of other vendors' security, various software, hardware, whatever. We know that the security landscape is always growing more and more complex. And you also asked me about efficiency, and I think those gains are incredibly powerful. I mean, we hear from a lot of customers that for one reason or another, they are still managing device by device in CLI, maybe with a thumb drive, loading in whatever, like we've all been there, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But when that grows beyond what your team can reasonably manage, it gets really hairy really fast. So just having that centralized dashboard that you can access from a browser and have your role-based access control, roles assigned to people, makes you leaps and bounds ahead of that CLI only kind of approach. And that also gives you really deep visibility. If you've invested in a lot of the different Meraki solutions that we covered earlier, switch, wireless, cellular gateways, all that kind of stuff, you can see all of that in one dashboard, which is really exciting operationally, because that means you need fewer resources. There's fewer logins, there's less clicking around, hopefully fewer browser tabs, and just fewer resources in general, people, tools, whatever, to manage these really large and distributed networks that in a lot of cases are getting kind of old. Finally, centralized analytics is also really powerful. And between what the Meraki dashboard can do inherently, and then with our API, you can automate tasks once you've got your analytics. And that also increases efficiency, reduces errors, all that good stuff.
This gives a clear picture of the tangible benefits cloud networking offers, especially for government agencies and other mission-driven organizations. So What makes Iron Bow and Cisco such strong partners here?
So I didn't start my Cisco career as a partner account manager in federal, but that was one of the stops along the way I made back in like 2013. Back then, Iron Bow was a heavy hitter. And if anything, you all are an even more capable and trusted partner today, 12 years later. Iron Bow will help you make sure your solutions aren't just designed well, but they're implemented right. They bring that deep technical knowledge that we as a Cisco team really appreciate from our partners, as well as decades of experience in public sector networks specifically, which we all know makes a big difference. And that's also shown, through Cisco's partner program, with them being a Cisco Gold partner.
What does what does being a gold partner mean?
So I told you I was a PAM 12 years ago. Back then, our partner program, the details, the tiers, everything else was exhaustive. It's even more so now. The key thing that I remember and that I think you as customers should remember to make things simple is that it's like the Olympics. When you see gold in front of Cisco partner, you know that's the highest tier. There are tons of training requirements to validate not just like the depth of their expertise technically, but breadth and then amount of resources as on training and all that expertise, not just on solutions like Cisco stuff, but how do you integrate all of those together to make sure our partners are hitting their, mission outcomes and that you can report back that, hey, we are getting all the efficiencies we can out of our investments. This also shows they've got financial rigor when it comes to either being a managed service provider, developing those offerings, and a lot more, to be frank. And also, like the Olympics are in our Cisco partner program, no performance enhancing drugs allowed, none of those test key type things.
Exactly. And then just to add to that, similar to the Olympic, gold, there's a gold winner for different events. Iron Bow has 25 different sort of gold medals, if you will, and when it comes to Cisco partner specializations. And we've got them highlighted here. But in addition to that, our engineering staff includes multiple CCIE certified engineers with tons of network infrastructure deployment experience, design and deployment experience, including DevNet expert, Cisco DevNet expert certified engineers that can assist with leveraging the API to automate deployments at a large scale for Meraki networks. And adding to that, Iron Bow offers a variety of services to our customers that range from consulting services, including workshops to discuss their current infrastructure, their current architecture, and how it would look to migrate to a cloud-based networking solution like Meraki. But in addition to that, design for that new network architecture, deployment, including ongoing management, and managed services capabilities as well to support these environments end to end.
I know we've talked a lot about simplification, but Susie, do you have an example?
Yes. So Corey got to talk to our first use case about the ability for customers to transfer from the Meraki commercial cloud over to the Meraki for government cloud. This simplification and how simple that process was. This simplification is about actually simplifying a technical architecture so that our customer could be more efficient. So let me give you the high level story here. One of the bureaus within a larger civilian agency had an aging wireless infrastructure, which, surprise, surprise, there are a lot of those out there, right? Especially since we lost a few years during, 2020, 2021. But their solution, when it was designed, required them to have multiple duplicative pieces of hardware strewn all across a very distributed network. So that just caused extra complication. And as we were talking to them about, modernization, we're not just saying, okay, we want to deliver the same Wi-Fi user experience we delivered in 2019. No, we want that to be a 2025 and beyond level experience. So as we're talking to them about modernization and future proofing, we decided with them that Meraki was going to be an excellent fit. And spoiler alert, it has turned out to be. They finished their install almost a year ago. And we designed it using Cisco Identity Services Engine as the foundation for their wired and wireless policy. This also allowed us to get rid of hardware-based controllers, which they were not opposed to having, but again, it just removes extra hardware that you need to keep on SmartNet contract. You need to make sure is operational physically, all that good stuff. Get rid of a lot of that, and then actually manage their network from Meraki's centralized dashboard. So all these benefits were especially powerful. You heard me mention distributed. When I say distributed, I really mean distributed. This bureau has offices spread out across the country, often in very remote areas. So, think about just how physically hard it is to schedule an IT or network professional to fly someplace, rent a car, and then drive to get to an office to physically do something. Doing a rack and stack is one thing, actually having to do CLI commands is another. So lots of time savings just based on the planes, trains, automobiles side of it. Then you've got the added confidence that they get knowing that with ICE as the foundation and other Cisco and third-party security solutions in there as well, they know that their posture is as robust as it can be. It will continue to evolve, but it's as robust as it can be while they're actually saving time on maintaining, on troubleshooting, and on optimizing their network. Because again, they can access the dashboard from a browser window. And this has just been a great shining example, we might say, that this bureau has been able to demonstrate to other bureaus within the agency on how they can, as we hear all the time, either do more with less or do more with the same. So yeah, really shining example of a project that actually improves the user experience, both for the end users and the operators.
That's awesome. Well, I want to thank you again to Corey, Susie, and Chris. We're going to now jump into the demo, and we will take questions along the way. If you have one, please drop it into the chat.
Yeah, and even if you're worried, as Corey's pulling that up, even if you're worried that your question is super specific or whatever else, we are happy to have follow-up conversations around either specific features and functionality or just diving deeper into an area that is of personal interest to you. And we can do trials and all that good stuff. So there's my plug to talk to y'all more in the future, and I'll give it back to Corey.
All that good stuff.
All that good stuff.
Yes, typically when we do a demo, I'm going to keep it pretty high level, but if there are questions, and even if you're listening to this, as a recording, if there's questions or something you want to dive into, something we're not covering, let us know, and we'll do a follow-up, so to speak. So the Meraki dashboard, for those that haven't seen it, I'm logged in as an admin, both on here on two tabs. I'll make it pretty obvious here. So within our Meraki accounts, if you will, company accounts, and then this is my personal dashboard that I'm using within the Meraki for Government Cloud. So I'll show you that here in a second. Roughly, 5.3 million active networks out there. I always like the fact that there's a few in Greenland, like in the middle of nowhere. So those are always good. But I'm going to dive into a dashboard that we've got a lot of different products in. And again, this is the commercial cloud. You can't see it probably because it's teeny, but at the top it says .com, Meraki.com, which is, our generic or commercial, I shouldn't say generic, commercial dashboard. Let me zoom in. So we're seeing, at first glance, all networks across all the different sites here. This could be, within the US, all over the world. Doesn't matter, right? You logically group these devices into networks, and that's where you start managing them, right? So that's what's on the right-hand side. On the left-hand side is all the products that are in this. Now, I mentioned earlier, and Chris went over the models that are supported. So we've got the security appliances, switching, wireless, right? Those are all within the Meraki for Government Cloud. I'll show you most of that in a second. And then we've also got, Systems Manager, cameras, and sensors, right? So lots of different things here. But by all means, just like in the use case Susie was talking about, if you just had wireless, you would just see wireless, right? You wouldn't see switching unless you became, or you made that manageable or part of the Meraki for the Meraki cloud.
So one might say we're eliminating noise.
What's that? Sorry.
Eliminating noise.
I love noise. What are you talking about? Yes. Eliminating noise, AKA, not having 17 buttons to press for one change, right? Across your wireless and wired networks. So again, lots of different networks here, but if I wanted to open this up and see, hey, who had the most clients, I could simply just toggle by clients. I can do a quick search to say, hey, show me just the, in this case, New York office, or, show me San Francisco. Well, actually, there's a bunch that's pulling up by SAN for different reasons, but very dynamic within the dashboard. I'll dive into one network and we'll see, what's in that network. Notice what I'm showing you, just to give it a quick side-by-side compare, is the exact same thing as gov-meraki.com. I mentioned this earlier in the sense that the dashboards, we didn't build something new. We didn't take our product and try to, revamp it and in theory ruin it to make it get through the FedRAMP process. Again, dumb sales guy term here, copy, paste, and then, turn the screws for FedRAMP is what we did. So it is the same, so much so we had one of, actually that customer I was mentioning that wanted to, migrate from their commercial cloud to their government cloud. They were comparing configuration side by side, and they said, wow, it's the same. Like, how do we know the difference? I'm like, well, the URL is different. And they asked us to rebrand it. So it looked different. So just as an example, here's one that we run internally amongst some of my peers, and we rebranded it with a little icon here, just so you can see the difference between the two. So I'll keep picking on this one as we go along, maybe. So lots within the dashboard, right? You're getting information around, hey, are the uplinks online, are the switches online, the APs online, right? Is there anything going on within this network? And you get all the client information. So you're seeing all clients, but if I only wanted to see, wireless clients as an example, and instead of a day, I wanted to see a week, again, very dynamic. I can quickly make those changes. I can see all the application information. In this case, I don't know what this network actually is, but it looks like there was a lot of Microsoft updates over the last week. That is not a lot of users, but you can see that. If I flip to actually, I'm gonna go back to my network here where I am physically sitting, and I think this machine I am presenting on is on this network. Yes, it is. So for example, within this network, let me zoom in so you're not squinting, make this bigger. You're seeing a lot of WebEx, not surprising. That's what we're sitting here talking to you on. I had all this turned off and turned it on earlier today, as you can see, roughly around noon, and started pumping data on it. You're also seeing YouTube because I typically have YouTube TV running on my other machine that's sitting here as well. So, lots of quick data that I'm getting out of this, with different devices. So I want to highlight something specific, not too specific to Meraki for government, but specific for, for customers that care about FIPS, let's just say, right? Because that could be, our federal customers, but also some state and local folks that, maybe have CJIS requirements, which is criminal justice information systems, and, other compliance things. So in the networking world for years, we've had the concept of, you have a device and you need to secure it. You need to make it compliant. So you jump on the CLI and you turn on FIPS mode, right? Whatever that command may be. I'm a sales guy. I don't know what the CLI commands are. So when you do that, you typically cripple the box in the sense that, some features get turned off or you can't enable those features anymore because it's in FIPS mode. We wanted to go about that in a different way where we are showing, or rather are allowing you to do your configuration as you so desire, but then we're showing you what is and isn't compliant within that configuration, right? I did mention earlier the tunnel from device to cloud is using a FIPS crypto algorithm and compliant algorithm. So yes, that is the case, right? So those devices that are sitting over my shoulder, which you can't see because I have a virtual background on, those are definitely, using that tunnel. These, you can't turn this on, right? You can't turn it off, meaning it's going to be FIPS either way. And that's again on both clouds. If you wanted to enable SNMP v2 as an example, right? You could enable that, but then most likely it's going to show it's not compliant because, you would need to have it encrypted with FIPS compliant cryptography, etc. If I scroll down to the bottom, because I've got wireless turned on for you here, do I have my WPA2 or WPA3 encryption set so that it is FIPS compliant? Little known fact, unless you're a geek like us, to have that be FIPS compliant, and notice all I did was click on the link within the dashboard there to understand what it is I was trying to look for. To have that be compliant, you have to have it be 14 characters long, right? So, click, and then it'll bring you into this page and you'll see, hey, how do I actually, configure my SSID and where do I configure it to make sure it is compliant or not compliant, right? So this documentation is really good. It'll help you out so that, again, you're not turning on a FIPS mode, which makes everything horrible. But you still have the ability to test that and see a checklist for your audit or what have you. What else? Firmware. Everybody was talking about firmware, so we're going to talk about firmware. So I think as Susie mentioned or somebody mentioned, we have.
It was Chris, but it's okay. People confuse us all the time.
All the time, right? I'm sure. We have that upgrade window that you select per network, right? So in this case, let me scroll down. In this case, right, I have an upgrade window set for Wednesday at 4 a.m. I have no clue, why or when I picked that, but that is what it is. I don't care. And if an update becomes available, I get an email. Anybody else that would be an admin of this organization and network would get an email, and it would say, hey, next Wednesday, 4 a.m., we're going to do that update. To everyone's comments earlier about simplicity and easy, that makes things easy because you get a note and you know what's going to upgrade and you say, okay, just do your thing, right? Devices will download upgrade. If you don't want to do that, whoops, let's leave this, because let's say you are the United States Postal Service and you don't want to do it then because, hold on, now my dashboard's messing me up. Because, it's December 23rd and you don't want to do updates while it's the most critical season for you, right? And I don't know why come on, Google. There we go. So you can come in here and find that network and decide, you know what, I'm going to do this on a different day and time, right? Or maybe you just want to come in and see, well, what is the update I'm going to do? And Chris did mention firmware and, having the ability to opt into, for example, if there's any beta firmware, which there's none in this one right now, if there's any stable release candidates, which you can see, there's a stable release candidate for the MX coming. So if you wanted to see, for example, on that MX, what is coming in 19 whatever, I'm going to scroll forward. I think this was the one, 19.1.8, that stable release candidate. You know, what's new, what's changing, what bug fixes were in there. If there's any CVEs, you would see CVEs listed in here that were being pushed or applied with this firmware, right? So don't have to go somewhere, don't have to find it anywhere else, and then you can do that update. So for example, and this is a template that I actually don't even use, so we're gonna have some fun with this. I could go in here and click the template and schedule upgrades and go to that stable release, pick the time and date as to when. Maybe I'll pick it for, you know, tomorrow at whatever time that is. Again, nothing's in this network, so I'm not that worried about it. And then you'd be done, right? So we'd move the window from Wednesday to Friday or whatever it may be. So pretty simple and easy there. What else did I want to touch on? Clients and network health was where I was going next. So let's use this laptop I'm sitting on. So here's this laptop. Oh, there's no location because I don't think there's a location on the access point. So apologies there, but you could have that be your floor plan or just be the Google Maps, right? But what I was going to touch on is how nice it is to string all this together. So because I have an access point here, a switch here, and an MX here, I can see the client device, how it's connected to the AP. In this case, it's connected, you know, over Wi-Fi, obviously, and what that has been like. I can see, you know, what's going on in the access point. Everything's green, so that's great. But what does that mean? So in this case, channel quality is good, right? No high usage on the AP. I can see from the AP to the switch. And if there was a problem with this, I could click on this and it would bring me right into the switch port page, which is nice. Again, that idea of simplicity, the idea of how quickly can you troubleshoot something, see something, understand something, right, is nice, instead of sitting there on a CLI and having to, you know, telnet into one device and telnet into the next device or what have you. So very easy to do. Again, I'm seeing, in this case, you know, that access point, I'm seeing what devices are connected through it. So it's all, you know, very nice and stitched together all the way out to that MX or that security appliance SD-WAN device. And for example, is it seeing packet loss? Is it seeing latency out to the internet, right? So that's something I wanted to show. There was one more I wanted to touch on here. The other one was packet capture. So, and this, again, makes people that are maybe not CCIEs be able to do things that, you know, is not easy, right? So I clicked packet capture, and I've done this for Meraki support before, where, you know, I've had an issue, customers had an issue, and we've, you know, had to do a packet capture. I would not be able to do this on other devices. I wouldn't know how to like mirror a port or connect to it. In this case, you know, I click the device, I click packet capture, it brought in, you know, the MAC address of that device, and then I could start the capture and download it, you know, as a PCAP with Wireshark, right? So very easy to do. Health. I think this might be one of the last things I really show. And I'm going to use another customer story here. I had a agency call me a month or so ago. They're using the Meraki for Government Cloud, so I can't show their stuff, but they asked us, hey, something's wrong with the wireless network, or I can't remember how they phrased it exactly, but they basically said what my kids say when, you know, the internet's down in our house and they're like, the internet sucks.
Oh, or you could be my mother and be like, call me frantically, Susie, I've broken the internet. To which I say, impressive.
Right. Right. So,
hey, real quick, let me jump in. We do have a question in Q&A. Can existing Cisco hardware be migrated into the Meraki for Government Cloud?
Yes.
Sorry, say that again. Can existing
Yes,
what hardware?
I
Can
got it.
existing Cisco hardware get migrated into Meraki for Government Cloud?
Yes. assuming that the hardware is in the compatibility list that yep, that's what Corey's bringing up right now. Yep, exact same thing. So here's the list of the products. If we've got your email address, we can send you the link as well, and talk to if a device you have isn't supported, what would be a good alternative.
Okay.
Yeah,
Also, how does Cisco handle hardware transitions, especially with the launch of Wi-Fi 7?
Yeah, good question.
Transitions.
I'll take that one.
Okay.
So let's say you've got existing wireless, and we'll give two scenarios here. You don't have Cisco and you have Cisco, right? And so let's say, and Susie's conversation and story was about a customer that didn't have Cisco, was interested in hardware transition and upgrade, and in their case they went ahead and wanted cloud, right? Picked cloud, picked devices, and their partner helped them migrate from where they were to where they wanted to go, and helped do that deployment similar to what Iron Bow could do, right? And the flip side would be, let's say it was a Cisco customer, right? Let's even say it was a Meraki customer, and we went from Wi-Fi 6E to Wi-Fi 7 devices. One thing that's nice from a dashboard perspective is the access. I was on the page I needed and I already clicked it. The dashboard doesn't care really if you are a Wi-Fi 7 access point, a Wi-Fi 6E access point, and let me show you models. And for example, in here, actually, we have a mix of our 9178, which is a Wi-Fi 7 access point, and a 9166, which is a Wi-Fi 6E access point. So in that sense, right, we're not going to care. And if you're an on-prem controller customer, similar in nature, where you could still have multiple access point types connected to the same controller. The only difference there is we're going to need to make sure we have the right controller firmware level to manage the access points, right? In the cloud, a little bit different in the sense that the firmware levels can be pushed from the cloud. And if you do have a legacy device, you will see in some of the firmware language, devices that are attached to networks, right, with firmware level X will really be on firmware level Y, because they're legacy and they're not going to be able to get those newer firmware updates, right? So hopefully that answers the question. Short answer is we migrate as we can help you through the transition, I guess, is the short answer.
I've got one for Chris. What exactly does Iron Bow provide in a deployment beyond hardware procurement?
Good question. So as Corey alluded to, and one thing that I wanted to add to the last question about migration to something like Wi-Fi 7, it's important to reevaluate the requirements for the wireless connectivity and the applications that you're running over the wireless network, and ensure that, if you just assume you can take a Wi-Fi 5 AP down and put a Wi-Fi 7 AP up, that may meet the requirements depending on the previous design, but you may need to reevaluate. Do you have the APs positioned correctly? Do you have the appropriate density to meet potentially requirements that may have changed since the last time that the wireless network was designed and deployed? So that's something that's important to consider. Iron Bow has engineering expertise to do radio frequency designs or Wi-Fi site surveys in order to make sure that you've got the appropriate position and quantity of your access points to meet your application requirements. We also have the engineering expertise to help, as Corey mentioned, maybe non-Cisco customers transition out of their design and wireless architecture into one that meets their requirements within dashboard, or potentially move from an on-prem Cisco deployment into Meraki dashboard, and make sure that that transition is seamless with minimal impact to the business.
Okay, and another question. How do I make a business case internally to move to Meraki's FedRAMP cloud solution?
That's a good one.
I would probably say, let's focus on threes because I like threes. First and foremost, do a trial. Do a proof of concept, right? I've had a few customers that have simply done a trial and stood up a network, shown their management, and go, see, we did it. It's that easy, right?
That was literally, Corey, the first step with that bureau I was talking about earlier was
Right.
Let's get the trial in their hands. Let's define a small scope pilot that they have the resources for and get that rolling. And now literally that bureau's been able to show and tell for others, which is okay. So that's your number one. You said three. Trial is
Yep.
number one. Sorry, I interrupted you because I want to hear what your 2 and 3 are because I want to see if they're the same as mine.
All right. Trial's number one because, again, you can show them for real. The proof is in the taste of the pudding. That's I'm bringing back the old expression, not the abbreviated one. The second thing, obviously, you gotta, from a business case standpoint, you gotta figure out how much it costs, right? So work with us to help you. Again, Cisco can provide you a piece of hardware that you can manage on-prem or in the cloud. So we can actually work with you all, with Iron Bow, to show, hey, if I buy this and want to manage it on-prem, what's it cost? If I buy this and want to manage it in the cloud, what's it cost, right? There will be slight cost differences. It's going to be pretty close over a 5-year period if you're really looking at it. But from a business perspective, you got to look at the cost. And then lastly, if you're talking about a business case, I'm going to sit here and say, how do we quantify and or put dollars towards what does operational efficiency mean to you? And that's the hard one to do. And that's why at the end of the day, proof of concept really is going to allow you to show it to your management.
Yeah, I wish it were as simple as us having some ROI calculator tool. It's just not, and partially that's because all of our customers are so different. And like Corey said, what does operational efficiency actually mean to you? Does it mean not having to hire a second person, or does it mean eliminating, half a rack of appliances that somebody who manages that room doesn't have to care and feed anymore? So yeah, it depends. But I'd also love to know, Chris, if there are I feel like you have more holistic, different conversations than we get to have with customers. I'd love to hear your thought there too.
I think you guys spoke to, hit the nail on the head. With on-prem solutions, right? I mean, they have their place and they do make sense in certain scenarios, but
in a lot of
scenarios
point, still, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Some environments are just disconnected from the internet, right? But do you have the resources and the time to, care and feed and maintain those appliances that are used to not only manage the infrastructure and configure it, but also support the day-to-day operations, troubleshooting, providing analytics on where an issue may be occurring within the environment, and adopting, AI and ML capabilities into troubleshooting to make, the mean time to resolution lower, right? A lot of that is cumbersome and challenging to do on-prem on an appliance when you have to continually download updates to a model or something like that in order to get those AI capabilities within your troubleshooting or operational tool set on-prem. So by reducing sort of the tech debt, if you will, of infrastructure on-prem, moving it into the cloud where it can be more rapidly updated and take advantage of those AI capabilities, I think it also makes your operations more efficient to kind of reclaim some time to focus on other areas that may be more effective for the business.
All right, Corey, what else do we have in the demo, sir?
I think we are done. Chris actually just hit on my last point anyways as he was talking, and I showed it. So, mean time to innocence, looking for that data, where's the needle in the haystack problem, and really using the tools, AI, ML, to figure that out. In this case, it was a simple, hey, Radius not responding. That's why that client can't get online, right? And here are, by the way, the recommendations to go figure that out, which is nice. So I think that's it from a demo perspective.
All right, let me see.
Excellent.
There's one last question. What was the biggest challenge in the customer migration story you shared, and how was it solved?
The biggest challenge was, how do we move all these devices and all these networks without a ton of hours spent? That was honestly the biggest challenge. And luckily, the use of APIs and automation with the APIs was the key, right? In reality, they still actually changed a good amount in their configuration because they realized it had grown over time. It had, become its own thing, and they almost, they didn't want to go with a clean slate. They didn't want to redo all of it, but they wanted to clean it up. So they did clean it up. And again, that use of automation and just the simple APIs that are available. I'll use another customer conversation. Had a customer the other day talk about wanting to be compliant and understand when their firmware wasn't up to compliance for CVEs and other things. And I Googled Meraki API firmware status, and we showed them the page, and they were like, oh, that's actually not bad. That's pretty easy. And within like the next day, somebody had it scripted and ready to go. So use those APIs.
Nice. Well, thank you everyone for attending. We greatly appreciate it. Always a pleasure to disseminate information that is very useful. And until next time,
Yes. Thank you all so much. Take care.
bye-bye.
Thanks for your time. Take care.